And good morning. This is the Laird, and this is the Laird Subjects. So, I know last week we didn't have an opportunity. We had some technical difficulties. We couldn't get the episode in. So this week, I'm going to drop 2 episodes. Today, I'm going to do episode 7, which is entitled Drama. Once again, I thank you for listening to the Laird Subjects. I am the Laird, and I have a lot planned for you this week. We've had some busy times in the last couple of weeks. Launched a new radio station, KLAI Radio. You can find that on the Live 365 app. Plus, I've also started a new radio show with some friends of mine from other radio stations and a few from outside of radio that we think they would work perfectly on the radio with us. And the name of that is Fumdizzle. That's Fumdizzle. You can look that up on YouTube, and you can watch us every Saturday from 10:30 Eastern at 9:30 Central, 8:30 Mountain, 7:30 Pacific. So as I said at the very beginning, this particular episode is entitled Drama. Now, what inspired me to do this week about this particular topic is I've gone around and I've had some things happening in my personal life, and I've seen some things happen in certain social media apps and a few other places, and I've noticed that a lot of it revolves around what we call today drama. So what is drama? Well, drama is defined in Webster's dictionary as an exciting, emotional, or unexpected series of events or set of circumstances, also known as a play for a theater, radio, or television. Now, I don't think that most of us, when we think of drama in today's terms, we don't think about that second definition. And the first definition, an exciting, emotional, or unexpected series of events or set of circumstances, I think a lot of us would change that definition personally, maybe to reflect someone that creates this, which is creating exciting, emotional, or unexpected circumstances. My personal definition, I like to break the word down into D-R-A-M-A. That's drama using the letters. The D stands for drawing, the R, ridiculous, the A, attention and, M, making and the final A, ass of yourself. So I would define drama as drawing ridiculous attention and making an ass of yourself. I also believe that that maturity starts when the drama ends. So I read a few articles. As you know, I like to read things about psychology and how things can affect the human mind and the human spirit. And I found an interesting article from July 29th, 2018 in Psychology Today by Dr. Thomas Hendricks, titled Life as Drama. Now, in reading the article, Dr. Hendricks recalls a visit that he made to his dentist and a conversation he had with his dental hygienist. And him being a doctor of psychology, he decided to kind of break down and analyze that situation, and this is the article that he wrote about it. So, these are the opinions and scientific theories that he put behind it, okay? So, dramatic people enjoy feeling and displaying their emotions. They have a taste for tension-filled scenes. Now, what Dr. Hendricks is talking about there is he's talking about dramatic people, they like to feel emotions, and they like to display those emotions. It's part of who they are, okay? We can see that in our actors that we have, certain radio and TV personalities. There's these people that perform in these dramas, especially when you think about the modern day soap operas. These people enjoy. It gives them a feeling of pride, or it gives them a feeling that they're displaying their emotions and people can see it, and it draws attention to themselves. Okay? They have a taste for these tension-filled scenes. Okay? So, Dr. Thomas Hendricks specifically is referencing young people in the next passages of his articles. And in there, he talks about Erik Erikson's gangling minds theory as it relates to young people. What the gangling minds theory is, it's basically a theory that Erik Erikson came up with that explains why young people act particular ways. Okay? So, and here's a few of the things that Erik Erikson applied to that theory. One thing that young people tend to apply to their everyday life is physical and emotional challenges that are sometimes overwhelming to them. So when you think about when you was a kid, or if you have a kid today, or if you have a teenager, or back to when you were a teenager even, you think about what physical and emotional challenges sometimes overwhelmed you. Now, of course, when you're talking about teenagers and young adolescents, you're talking about puberty and things like that. So there's a lot of things that can affect them and cause them to be what we would call as adults over dramatic. Most young people, they occupy low social positions, and that makes them a victim to much of what happens. We see it not only in today, but we see it throughout when we were kids, and we see it going into the days of tomorrow, where children are typically low in social position. Not very many people listen to what a child has to say about any particular subject. So a lot of times they feel like they're a victim, or they get a victim mentality about why things are happening to them. Now, we could talk on another episode about what we can do as adults to change that. This is just stating the simple facts of observation that Erik Erikson made. And then here's a big one. For most young people, it's the first time they're facing any issues or challenges. So we have a lot of things. Imagine when you were 17, 18, 19 years old, and you're either off to college, or you got a job, or you joined the military, or you gained control of something that was yours for the first time. You didn't have any parental influence, guardian influence, mentor influence. You had to figure out how to do things on your own. So we look at it as we get older, and we think, well, that's not really that big a deal now, but try to remember how it was when you were that age. Another thing about young people, and we see this all the time in the news, especially if you pay attention to LGBTQ issues or any other issues you see with kids today, you see it more pronounced in the news because there's more things being reported on it. Whether you agree with it from a political standpoint or not is irrelevant. Bottom line is you still see it out there. And these are issues that a lot of these young adults are dealing with. They're dealing with constant issues of their identity. They're constantly asking, well, who am I? How do I fit in? What do people really think of me? And younger peers, and there's still people today that in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that still have a tendency to do this, because this is a hard habit to break. They have a tendency to check in with their peers. Things like, oh, did you see what so-and-so posted last night, or the video that so-and-so put up on this, or what so-and-so said to so-and-so, or things like, hey, are you going to go to that particular event that's happening on Saturday? Are you going to watch it on television? Are you going to watch it on computer or iPad or whatever the case may be? But people tend at that age to constantly check in with their peers. And like I said, there's some people that, quite frankly, they never really grow out of that. So why is that? Why do we have people, and what causes this tendency to check in with their peers? Well, the internet is a huge factor in this. Before we had constant communication with everybody, and I'm old enough to remember when cell phones weren't around. If you wanted to make a phone call to somebody, it was like, hey, when are you going to be home? Well, I'll be home about 6, 7, 8 o'clock tonight. Call then. And you call at 6 o'clock. If they didn't answer, you'd try, at 7 or 8 or whatever the time is, and then you might get the chance to talk to that person depending on what's going on. Today, we have constant contact with each other, either through cell phone texting, cell phone calling, social media, any plethora of those. So what has this given rise to? Well, it gives rise to the fear of missing out, short-term FOMO. So with all these things going on, some people, adults included, some people get this fear that they're missing out on something, that something is going to happen and they're not going to be a part of it. And for people who thrive off of dramatic experiences, that is a big thing that drives them. The key component of this fear is the prospect of banishment. They think, well, if I'm not a part of this, at some point in time, the people that I like or the people that I'm with in this group, they're going to banish me from this group. I'm going to be left out. And it's a fear of that banishment, or fear of abandonment even, that really drives that fear of missing out. Bottom line, the common theme here is fear. There's a big fear on that. So some people tend to magnify their issues, and a lot of these issues are actually quite minor in comparison to what's really going on. How many of us have been in a situation where we've sat back after a situation has happened, really looked at it and thought, wow, we got all upset over something like that? Or this happened and now we're upset about this, or now we're talking about this, or whatever the case may be. Or even in some cases, I lost a friendship over that. Or I lost I lost a spouse over that. So these are things that we got to be careful of, especially as we get older. And for those that are concerned, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, this guy's really talking about me, I really do thrive on a lot of these things. I really do enjoy the drama that comes around in my life. Well, just to kind of put your mind at ease, it is a very basic human concern. Folks that magnify this through dramatic experiences just happen to magnify it through dramatic experiences. Others magnify these same experiences or these same basic concerns in other avenues. It could be overly involved in their work. It could be, pick anything. They could be obsessive compulsive about video games. It could be, in some cases, it could be even something where people who are afraid of missing out figure, hey, I'm going to make sure I don't miss out and I'm not going to remember anything. So maybe drugs or alcohol or even an addiction to sex could be something that they channel that energy into. But tonight we're specifically talking about dramatic, or the dramatics. So like I said, most of everything that I've discussed and I've brought to attention here lately, it is concerning young people. Now some people will go, well, what's your definition of young people? In this particular example, we're talking about usually teenagers up through early to mid-30s is what this would be considered for young people. When we talk about adulthood, which is the next subject I'm going to go into, when we start talking about adulthood, we're really talking about people that are 35 and over, and we're not really going to touch too much on senior adulthood, because that's a whole other ball game. Once you get past a certain age and certain medical conditions start becoming a factor, and certain deteriorations of the body also have an effect on the mind. So moving on to adults. So what about the adults? So what is it about dramatic adults? Okay. So adults use what is commonly referred to as impression management, or at least that is the term that was coined by Erving Goffman in the presentation of self in everyday life, which is a really good read if you're interested to figure out why people do certain things that they do. And what Erving Goffman was explaining in that is impression management is the use of dramatic techniques and settings to see that the people that we care about regard us in a way that we desire. Now, we all have what we want people to think of us. We want people, and I think that the vast majority of people, to oversimplify it, would just want people to think that they're a good person. Well, I'm a good person. I'm a nice person. I help people out. I do this. I do that. That is the a very general generalization of what I would say 90% of the human population want. They just want people to have the impression that they are a good person, whatever that definition of good person is for the group that they're trying to participate with. So dramatic folks tend to use these techniques and settings to make people see them in a particular light. Now, what happens a lot of times, especially with adults, because most of us, even though it's not at the front of our mind, most of us subconsciously remember being a younger person. And once again, I'm talking about people who are usually about 35 plus. So a lot of us, when we start seeing adult folks do this, we start kind of thinking in our mind, yeah, I remember in high school, there was a person I knew that did that or acted this way, or this girl did this guy did that. Now we're seeing it as what I am assuming is mature adult status. We're looking at it, and sometimes we associate that with either negativity or something that we've seen when we were younger. And of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We base we base every interaction that we have on a daily basis with our experiences as human beings. And every one of us has a different experience, depending on your background growing up, depending on religious, political affiliations, any number of things. Those all shape what we want people to look at us for. Okay. Now, the term is impression management, but to kind of get it down to where most folks really understand it, this is also more commonly referred to as presenting your idealized self. So this is what you want people to ideally think of you. Okay. How many times, especially if you think back to your young childhood, how many times were you sitting in a room, or you getting ready to go somewhere, or your parents or your guardians or somebody, even a friend, would say, hey, you need to be on your best behavior? And of course, depending on the situation, you'd be like, okay, yeah, fine, I'll be on my best behavior. Because you didn't want to embarrass your parents or whatever the case may be. Once again, that depends on who you are as an individual. But I know that everyone, for the most part, everyone has probably heard that at some point in time. Hey, you need to be on your best behavior. Why is that? Well, that's because as adults, once again, we're trying to present an idealized self. I know I've talked in the past about, the three faces that we all have. We've got the face that we show the world, which in this example would be the idealized self. This is what we want everybody to see. This is what we want people to think of us when they hear our name or they see us on the streets or whatever the case may be. So, with that being said, we present that to people. Then you have your more intimate self. That's usually the self that you'll show to friends, family, loved ones, significant others, etc., so on down the line. So those are the things that we call the intimate self. And then you have the face that is the real self, the real person that you are. That's the person that you don't show that to anyone. You don't allow people to see that. That is something that only you see. Only you show to yourself. It's what you really think. It's who you really, really are at your core. So with all this pressure that we put on ourselves, especially for folks that tend to be overly dramatic, adult social lives consist of carefully managed impressions, which is exactly what I just explained. We carefully manage the impressions that people have of us, and we only put forth what we want people to think. Well, a lot of times, because of the fear that we have that somebody's going to see something we don't want, we tend to create dramatic experiences. So that's where a lot of drama and things like that come from in someone's life. Well, we'll say outside drama. You have inside drama, which is your everyday, your bills, your mortgages, your everyday interactions with your loved ones. Then you have the outside drama, which is, friends and other people, acquaintances, people on social media, people in politics, things like that. They bring these things in. We should be the persons we say we are, not just the social apparitions, but in all the moments of our lives. Now, that's a very hard thing for us to do. I mean, let's break that down. We should be the persons we say we are. There are quite a few people out there that are like that. What you see is what you get. What you explain or what they allow you to see, that is what you can expect of those people. There are some that put together for lack of a better term, the pretty face or the idealized self. That's the place that they want. That's the face rather that they want you to see. That's the perception they want you to have of them. Not just our social apparitions. Now, what we're talking about there in that part of the statement is social apparitions. We create social apparitions, whether consciously or subconsciously, of ourselves every single day. And dramatic folks do it all the time. If you think that looking at a video of somebody or looking at a short clip of somebody gives you an idea of what that person is like, you are sorely mistaken. A lot of times that's a social apparition that people put forth because that's what they want you to see. Good, bad, or indifferent. In all the moments of our lives. Now, basically what we're talking about, that's the shore up of the sentence. So it's talking about not just social apparitions, but in all the moments of our lives. Basically, this is a call for people to start basically being real with each other. Now, there are people out there that they can't let go of dramatic events. And when I'm saying dramatic events, I'm not talking about historically dramatic events. I'm talking about their personal dramatic events. Did you hear what so-and-so said? Did you see what this happened? Did you hear about this? Did you know this? Did this happen? Blah, 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 blah. So the big question, or the ultimate question, is, well, what do we do about this? What do we do about people who are causing drama that we believe affects us? Well, the one element that I haven't discussed yet that really sums it all up is to go back to the question for reiteration. What do we do to make sure that the drama doesn't affect us? To oversimplify it, we don't let it affect us. You have to choose for a situation to have an effect on you. It is your choice. It is your choice if something that somebody said about you or something that somebody did to you, you choose the outcome of the effect that has on you as an individual. So it's a choice. If somebody says something that you find to be offensive, you had to choose to be offended by what was said. Not saying that you're not going to have an emotional reaction to things, because I do. Others that are listening to this surely do. But how we react to that, whether it be a good reaction or a bad reaction, depending on your definition of good and bad reactions, that is completely subjective to us. Most people that are listening, and if you're a first-time listener, thank you for listening. But those who have listened for a while know that I am a former Marine. Former being in the sense that I am no longer active duty. Once a Marine, always a Marine. I am also a former police officer. So my threshold of somebody offending me, in other words, of me getting my feelings hurt by a dramatic event, is pretty thick. You've got to do something really bad to offend me, because I've been called and I've been in situations where I've just had to let those certain things go, and for lack of a better term, I've gotten used to it. So my threshold of dramatic events and how they affect me is a little bit tougher, for lack of a better term, than what some others may have. And that just has to do with our life experiences. There's other people that, for lack of a better term, are pretty thin-skinned. There's not really much you can say where they're not going to take some sort of offense to. And even though, yes, being offended is a choice that you have to make in a split-second decision, it's just something that happens in your brain, it is still, at the end of the day, a choice that you make in how you respond. So, when we're talking about dramatic events and how do we handle those, well, you handle them like a mature adult. If it is something that you hear or see and you don't want to have anything to do with it because of the contents or the context or whatever the case may be, you simply have to make the choice that I'm not going to partake in this drama. And the more people that do partake in said drama usually makes the situation a lot worse than people who say, I'm not going to participate in your dramatic events. Especially when a lot of dramatic events, especially the ones that we have today, aren't even caused by those that are closest to us. We all have enough stress and enough quote-unquote drama in our own personal lives that we have to deal with. Why would we let someone, a stranger from any stretch, I don't care how close you are to somebody on Facebook, I don't care how well you talk in a conversation with people on any social media apps whatsoever, at the end of the day, most of the people that you interact with are complete strangers to you. They don't live in your home. They are not part of your families. They probably know as little about you as you know about them. So why would you let someone that, for lack of a better term, quite frankly, is a complete stranger, have that kind of effect on you? If you really sit back and think about it, it's kind of silly, isn't it? We don't let strangers that we run into on the street on a daily basis have huge effects on us. And I'm not talking about seeing somebody who's homeless or maybe in a bad spot and us not having an emotional pull to that. I'm talking about if somebody on the street says something to you and you don't like it 9 times out of 10, most folks are just going to be like, whatever, and are going to move on. But for some reason, and it goes back to what Dr. Hendricks was saying, with the rise of the internet, we have these things that affect us a lot more. And why is that? Well, we make it more intimate. If you click on, let's take it to a social media app. If you are involved with somebody that you know has a tendency to create dramatic events in their lives, and you click or tap or select or whatever you want to call it to be a part of that, you are making a conscious decision to bring that drama into your life. Because you could easily say, I'm not going to deal with that, and not engage. Now, that's not to say that you don't support somebody who may be going through a rough time. That's a completely different scenario. But really think about it. That's what I would leave you with. Really think about it. How much unnecessary drama in your life is you making a conscious decision to bring it in without even realizing it? That's a lot to think about. And I'll challenge you to think about that this week. And I challenge you to, as you're going through your social media and as you're dealing with people in your everyday lives, I challenge you to think about that when you run into a situation. You run into a dramatic situation that may be on social media, and you say, you know what? Make that conscious effort to not partake in it and see how your life is after that. See how you feel after that. Once again, this has been the Laird Subjects. I am the Laird. Like I said, we had some technical difficulties last week, so I will be dropping 2 episodes this week. This is the first episode, episode 7, entitled Drama. I also have a new radio station, KLAI, on the Live 365 app. We play rock mix, and we play some heavy metal from time to time. I also have a show on Saturday nights, every Saturday, 10:30 Eastern, 9:30 Central, 8:30 Mountain, 7:30 Pacific, on YouTube, entitled Fumdizzle, Fumdizzle. Also, we're starting to sell advertising space for our podcasts and for my radio station. If you want to have your business advertised, contact me through the Podbean app or through the Laird at thelairdofnb.com. That's the Laird at thelairdofnb.com. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope you enjoy the things that you may have learned or things to think about. And I look forward to seeing you next time right here on the Laird's Subjects.